I guess they want us to start or something here. So my name's Chris. I started building my first game in grade 1. If I remember right, I couldn't read, so the grade 2s had to teach me what go to 10 meant and stuff like that, so it was kind of cool. So I love games. One of the things I'm most proud of is that I helped build the back end for a game called Club Penguin. Built it up to 300 million users, and my main job was to build out the safety systems and all the moderation type tools. And then I became a Disney white hat hacker and basically licensed to hack everything at Disney, which was the coolest job ever. Until I realized that the principles that we're using in hacking, we can actually use to find people that are breaking chat filters. And then I asked them, well, can I just build this on the side? And they said, no, get out of here. You have to start your own company. And so I did. So that's how I got here. Now I'm a CEO, got a whole bunch of staff, and we do about 4 billion messages a day. And we resolve over 1 million cases of abuse daily on the internet. OK, great quote. Riot Games presented, and they said, look, a user experiences toxicity is 320% more likely to quit. So that's kind of the rub of the whole thing. Now, I got these really cool guys at this game called, or a studio called Playtika, and they got a game called World Series Poker. And I was meeting with Alex, my buddy there, and I said, OK, why are we having this chat about filtering and stuff like that? And he goes, OK, I was sitting there at GDC, and Riot Games got up and they presented this, and all of a sudden I realized, oh my goodness, when you're playing poker and you put your kitty in, all the person has to do is troll you, and then you'll abandon the game, and then he takes the whole kitty, and it's so frustrating. So we need to have like an appropriate level response to deal with that, because if we don't, the other users will drive our good users away, which is important because it costs us money to get users. I pulled up the Fixku score this morning, and it said that it was $4.81 to get an iOS user. That's a lot of money that we're all paying to acquire these users. And if you want to get 1 million users, that's well over $4 million to get that going. There's got to be a way of keeping those users. And so there's a few ways we can do to increase our money, right? So we want to think about monetizing our games, making them happen. Well, we can sell more stuff. We can make people stay longer so that they buy more stuff over a longer period of time. And we can launch a new game like a sequel, and then they'll come back and play it because they love the first game. So those all rely upon a fundamental assumption. So one thing, the question that I've been asked, I've asked people, OK, what do you want me to talk about? What do you want me to add to the slides? And people are like, well, should I even go multiplayer? I think I had 3 people ask me today, and they're like, well, we're thinking about going multiplayer. We're not sure if it even is the right solution for us. And that's a good question to ask, because multiplayer is not always the right solution. It really depends on your game and your player dynamics. And in some cases, it's going to be really, really awesome. But if you do it wrong, it's actually going to work against you, and you're just going to sink all your money. So we did a study with another game studio. And one of the early results is that a user who writes anything into the chat bar on their first day is 4 times more likely to come back on day 2. And we thought, OK, we're still validating that because we can't believe that that's even possible. But even if it was 20%, that would be substantial in order to increase our revenues of being able to generate more money from that product. But that's not always the case, because sometimes it actually causes people to leave. So there's this great quote, if you can read parts of it, but I'm going to summarize the whole heart of it, is this guy was writing on Overwatch forums. It's like, I love the game. But essentially, and I'll come back to this quote later, I hate the community. And we don't want people saying that about our games, that we put so much effort into our game, and the community is supposed to make them feel a sense of belonging or feel a sense of competition, feel that they're playing against real humans. They got that competitive side to it, or a community side. We don't want them to say that they hate our community. And unfortunately, other studies show that if we leave trolls and toxicity alone, it just gets worse and worse and worse, which is really problematic. So if our 3 ways of increasing our money is we can sell more stuff and make people stay longer, people aren't going to stay longer if we spend $4.81 to get them in the game, and the first thing that they hear is, get out of here, we don't accept your ethnic group, all your ethnic groups should die, wish you get cancer, go to the hospital, and the hospital would burn down, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We have all heard this crappy stuff. And it's like, ugh, you guys are so annoying. I mean, the stuff that you're saying, I mean, sometimes, like, humorous, laugh, or whatever, but it's actually can affect our bottom line, sometimes. And sometimes it can actually create game dynamic that creates tension and competition. So we also have to analyze that and put it into play as well. And more importantly as well, if we launch our game and it's really, really bad, who's going to play our next game? right? There's 3 whatever million apps in the App Store. It's really hard to get discovered. So let's do the math of toxicity. I was surprised by this number. So 52% of these players say that they've been cyber victimized. That's quite a few people complaining that they've been victimized. 35% said that they've committed this victimization themselves. But I think there's a really good caveat that we have to put in that 35%, is that's not all the time. And I think there's this theory, this panic, the sky is falling. And it's like, oh, if I add chat, if I add these functionality, all my users are going to be trolls. No, not all. Sometimes, at some point in their life, someone, like 35% of people are going to do it sometimes. This also means 65% don't ever do it. Well, hold on here. Let's talk about the financials of our game. Which audience are we catering to? If 65% of users never are involved in that activity, who has more money that they're going to pay you? Which is your bigger audience demographic? And it seems strange to me that sometimes we build games when we focus on that they can go and focus on trolls and toxicity. I was actually at Gamescom. I was speaking to this guy, and I said, yeah, he said, what do you do? I said, well, I remove trolls from the internet. And he goes, but those are our best users. I said, OK, well, I'll tell you what. Our studies show, and your mileage will vary, but only about 1% of new users are trolls. So what you just told me is you're catering to 1% of the marketplace. You've made a business decision to only have 1% of your market. Tell you the truth. If it's your trolls that are paying you most of the money, what's actually happening is 99% of your users are pissed off at you and not paying you any money. That's what's happening. That's the reality of what's going on. But let's zone in on this one here. If 1% of your users is going to be part of your new user base is going to be toxic. Now, that number does vary. Depends if you're a kid's product, if you're a fighting game, if you're competitive, all those kinds of things. What I have seen, though, is that I've seen this number of 1% grow all the way up to 20%. So we have people like Riot Games have published out and said that they're over 20% before they made their awesome changes. And they have those kinds of issues and those problems. So how does it go from 1% to 20%? Because what that happens is you're guaranteed that every time you spend $4.81, for every 100 users you get, one of them is going to be a troll. OK, so I'm just going to get that. But what happens if the trolls stay and the good users leave? Right? So now your trolling goes up and your trolling goes up, and then it tips the balance. And now your dominant conversation, it becomes an escalating problem of toxicity and trolling. And the game becomes unbalanced. It becomes unfair. And balance is critically important to games. And I believe that we need to spend as much time involved in thinking about community balance and community mechanics that we spend into game mechanics. Because, I mean, who among us would go and create a game and you have this mighty sword of Ashkelon? And whenever you take this sword, every time you yield it, wham, everyone in the room dies. It's like there's no defense, there's nothing against it, and yet trolls come in with this massive sword and they slash, and the audience it's not so much that they are offended severely by that comment, it's they can't do anything about it. They feel that they can't overcome it, they can't oppose it, they press the report button, nothing happens. It's like, why does this keep going on? It's an unbalanced ecosystem which creates the same problems in the economy as the rest of it. OK, so talking about broken strategies, I mentioned this one just before. Our trolls are our best users. OK, so that gives us the problem that we're actually marketing to a tiny audience. Now, I will give that there's room in the industry for a few games to target trolls. Not that I'd be supportive of that, but there is room for that. So some people can chase that. But we can't all chase after the trolls because that leaves 90% of the market or 99% of the market with no one collecting their money and making money off those users, which our CEOs will all be mad at us. One thing you can do is if you know that you've got some trolls and you really want to keep them, you feel that they're your best playing members, well, we have matchmaking. Why don't we matchmake the trolls with other trolls and they can just have a good time? But let's definitely not take our users that are part of that 65% that never troll anyone and stick them with someone who's going to be trolling, because they probably don't identify with that kind of behavior. Another thing I've seen is that I saw this trend coming up in industry, and that's we're just turning off chat. It's like, oh, there's too much toxicity, there's too much trolling, we're just going to turn off chat altogether. And yet our studies are showing that when we engage in chat, it creates a whole lot more engagement under the right kind of game, right? Some games it doesn't make any sense at all. It just was slapped on and someone said you make money and this doesn't work. It has to be built into your game mechanic. But for those kinds of games, it's really kind of keyly important. I love playing this game, Clash Royale from Supercell. Very, very clever. So when I am it's a competitive game, so obviously, because it's competitive, I'm going to get toxicity because I'm fighting it. So if I allow chat when I'm playing against the other person, it's going to be terrible. So they were really smart, and they just put click this little button and send them like an angry face or crying face or whatever. And you can do that in multiple languages, works great. But then they allow for open chat inside my client so that I can have a sense of belonging, sense of community, sense of achievement, like that whole kind of element. That was very clever how they did that. So instead of turning off all of chat, you can figure out where chat is useful. Another one I've seen is that they delegate the responsibility to the users. Now remember, the majority of user base is your positive users who are non-trolls. So if our answer is, look, if someone's offending you, just press the mute button, or you kick them out of your guild or your clan or your alliance. It's your responsibility to deal with these people that are annoying you. It's like, hold on, what's the dynamic? Is it 65% of people are positive? Most likely 99% of people are positive. So why do they have to carry the burden of muting the people? And the muting people are the ones that are gaming the system. So they just create a new account, and they come back in. They do it all over again. It's their job to keep muting them over and over and over again. We're putting our greatest amount of revenue at risk to entertain the people that want to destroy our product. So that seems backwards and upside down. So one thing that you could do is if you really want to if you want to go with a muting kind of idea, why don't we put the mute the opposite way around, and we just mark everything as toxic that's toxic, and then we just kind of can hide it. And then people can turn it on if that's what they really like. If they're not bothered by the toxicity and they want to be part of that engagement because it's their close friends and that's just how their friend is and they put up with it, they can enable it and turn it on. But you could put the burden on the toxic people. The other thing I've seen is I've seen people doing a lot of crowdsourcing. So imagine if someone wanted to go and implement Riot Games' tribunal system. I'm not exactly sure all the details of their hidden technology behind it, so I can't display that. So let's say we all wanted to copy them and do what they did. And imagine that you take all of the chat messages that someone found offensive and you show it to all your best users who deeply believe in your product, who love your product, and all they get the whole entire session is all this terrible, terrible stuff. Well, that can create burnout and churn and all that kind of stuff. Your best volunteers and your best people that you're crowdsourcing, we should be giving them the stuff that is that needs a human. The stuff that's obvious and blatant, we don't need to expose people to that at all. OK, so let's talk about some practical tips. So I mentioned earlier that we need to apply the same level of attention to community mechanics as we do to our game mechanics, so they don't have that mighty sword of whatever that thing was, right? So going back to our quote, this user had a great suggestion. He says, trolls and toxic players are ruining this game. Reporting them does absolutely nothing, so he feels powerless. They have that mighty sword, and he can't do anything to defeat it. And the matchmaker still places you in the same game with them. This should never be able to happen. If I report someone, why on earth would I ever want to be put in the same game as them? It's like reporting means nothing and to just like a fake button to make me feel better. Right? So users are quick to pick up that experience did nothing for them. But there is some points that we can pick up here. So one thing I want to add to industry is this concept that not all bad behavior or toxic behavior is the same. It's not like toxic, non-toxic. It's like there's toxic, and then take the toxic part, and let's break it apart into 4 things. The up-down axis is severity, right? When someone says, you're ugly, and then go F yourself, and go, you should just kill yourself, and your entire ethnic group should be whatever, it gets worse and worse and worse and worse, right? So like in sex, you can go from innuendo to sex to rape. And every product needs to figure out how much will their community put up with. What is that yellow line is the resilience. Every community has got a built-in resilience, and they can handle it. It's like an organism. So if you go back to the word toxicity, it goes back to a medical term. Every organism has the ability to handle toxins. It will purge it from its system. It has an antibody system, an immune system, and it'll purge it and get rid of it. But what happens, though, if the toxicity exceeds the body's ability to be able to expel that toxicity, and then it becomes unhealthy and it begins to die. And so will our communities if the toxicity reaches. But that does mean, though, that our communities can handle some toxicity, which is great news. So it's all our responsibility when we design our community mechanic to think about what is the resilience level. So if you're a children's-based product, you're not going to put up with any swear words. But if you're rated M for mature, that could be OK. But then the question is, what happens if they say 20 swear words all in a row? It may be OK, but now it's just stinking annoying. So maybe your community just has a point where enough is enough. It may be OK to make some sexual comment, but when it goes on and on and on and just goes into rape and everything else, and just like, I'm just sick of you. So you got to figure out what your resilience is. So there's the severity, but then there's the frequency of how often the person is engaged in that. And then we can break it up into the behaviors of the users. So you've got your one group that they just say one little swear word, and all they're doing is they're checking to see what's acceptable. Because we know that, especially with teen-based audiences and younger audiences, they always want to know what the boundary is. And then when they know what the boundary is, then they feel safe that they can move on. And then on the other side, we've got the trolls. Those are the ones that are ongoing, persistent. Their game is to destroy the experience for everyone else. Their game is to destroy. And then on the bottom corner, you got those annoying people, which is your spammers. Go to this website and get free whatever. Those people, just really annoying. And then you got the larger group of negative content. So most of your negative content is just, don't even worry about it. It's just there. I thought this was interesting. Someone else's research from, there's quotes there. They said basically within 10 posts, you already know if someone is trolling or toxic or not. Well, if that's true, we can start taking actions when we divide it into severity and frequency. So one thing that you can do is that if they just are dropping things that are above your level of resilience, just go ahead and filter it or warn the user and say, hey, that's not cool. If they keep doing it and it crosses your threshold, let's say they do it 6, 7, 8 times, then you can escalate it or you can ban it, you can block it. Usually you just ban the account and be done with it. What I think is funny, those guys that are doing like the spamming and whatever, is you can mute them. You can do like a hell ban, of course, where you mute them, but they don't tell them, and they just keep writing, and it just keeps showing. It shows on their screen, but no one else's. So we did that at Club Penguin all the time, and like reporters would come in, they only know 4 words, and they would type them in. They'd be like, oh, you can say anything you want. It's like, actually, you can't. Use 2 screens, please. So, but anyhow, and you can play tricks on them, like. The randomness is a hacker's worst enemy. So like if their content's not that bad, you can sometimes let it through, sometimes not. They'll have no idea what's going on. It's just great. So, and then the other category is, this is a great case for that crowdsourcing. So when people are saying, let's crowdsource, let's bring it to a tribunal, let's bring it to a report mechanism, whatever, this is a great solution for it. So the content is not that severe, and it is bad, but now you give it to the community. Now the community is not going to complain. You guys are a police dictatorship, and you guys are censoring and all this kind of stuff. I said, no. Look, there's a few people in this community that the systems picked up are not that great, and the community has voted on it and said they suck. So it's not so much, and besides, we built this community hall, and no one's talking about whether you can, it's not a political rally or anything like that. So it's like, let's move on here. So, anyhow, you can then crowdsource it, and you can deal with a lot of those objections as well. So the cost of doing nothing is good users will leave faster than the toxic users, which sucks, because they're the ones that can help your community grow. They're the ones that want your community to grow and flourish and bloom, because you want to be that healthy organism that can expel the toxicity and grow and bloom, which is what I mean by the toxicity will exceed the resilience. So that organism will begin to die. Users will feel nothing can be done, and they will say, I love the game but hate the community, which is your telltale sign in your forums and your App Store reviews that you have a problem. So community, we ask the question, should we add community or not? Should we go multiplayer or not? It's going to be a double-edged sword. So if it meets your game mechanic, it can do absolutely huge things for your revenue and like increasing your lifetime value. But you got to make sure that you do it right. The good news is you can do it right. So our good old Riot Games has done really good work. They presented that with their system, they were able to. So when they provided instant feedback, like they actually found out that if you tell someone the reason why they were banned or an action was taken against them, the reform rate grew tremendously. They said about 92%. And then toxicity in the most competitive games has dropped by 40%. And they've actually done some really good work. I mean, obviously still more to go, but they started from a really hard place, and we all commend them for the hard work that they've done. OK, so I promised that I would show you how we could do this for free. So there's these good guys over at Photon And they got this new product called PhotonChat. Let's see if I have it running. Oh, no, I don't want to show you my inbox. Oh, well. Oh, well, anyhow. Oh, this is only showing PowerPoint. Oh, so I can go and clean my windows. Ah, so awesome. OK, so I need to quit this presentation. This is where technology becomes the awesome. Escape. There, that's the screen that we have. So Photon's got this like Photon Chat, and it's like free if you're like small users, which is cool. I love it. So we wanted to jump and piggyback on that. So then we just embedded our system right inside Photon. And so then when you're inside PhotonChat, you can just go into like the manage your properties things, and you can add this chat filter, and you can say, look, I want to turn the filter on, and if I'm going to choose my different policy. Oops, internet's not working. And if you do that, then you can just do it, which is cool. Then later on, when you're big, you can upgrade to an enterprise when you're ready. And then if you're in Unity, then you can just go to like the asset store, and you can download the PhotonChat thing. And then I did that, and I pressed play. It probably won't work because I don't think my internet is turned on. But I'm going to be the name Bingo. And then you can say like, hello, if you can read it from way over there. And it says it works. And then you can say like, fuck off, you old hoser. And it doesn't go through. So, and then if we want to get like really fun, we can go like, because it just never ends, upside down text. I'll show you guys some really cool stuff that we see all the time. This is like, we spend millions of dollars a year on all this kind of stuff. This is a good Canadian. You can tell I'm Canadian because I use the word hoser in my examples. So then you go and like, ha! It's like, upside down, to go like, here's, I'll show you some more. We're having fun now. I should leave room for questions, but I'm having too much fun. So you translate Google, and then you go like, this is crazy. So you take the word restaurant in English. Hey, give me English. Retype, I guess. You guys still having fun? Should I keep going? OK, so we got restaurant. It comes pecto pas, which is not pecto pas, it's restaurant. I don't know why, but that's how they pronounce it in Russian. So I can take restaurant, I can take that word, I can take the Cyrillic C in the N, or a C in the T, which is not a C and a T, and I can spell this nasty word. And even though it's in Cyrillic, we can still make it work, which is kind of cool. But that's like the crazy nonsense that the ends of the earth that people are going to. And right now, we're discovering the amazing ability amongst all the Unicode characters of all the letters that look like F and all that kind of stuff. It's like, OK, now I got to go OCR the entire 3 million Unicode characters, or 3+ million, and to figure out what looks like F. It's like the joys. But anyhow, OK, questions from anyone? So we have 5 minutes left. Yeah, please.
I've got a mic, if you could.
Oh, thanks.
So an argument I've heard about trolls, I don't know how valid this actually is, maybe you have thoughts, is that because they're the loudest in the community, the most angry, loud people you've got, they also have the risk of being the loudest people when they leave and potentially trashing your game. Do you have any thoughts on whether that's a legitimate concern, or is there a way to work around that?
Yeah, they will go on your forums and say, you're denying free speech and my liberties and my whatever amendment. Sorry, I'm from Canada. And all those other elements. And they'll go and make a big noise, and then it will just settle down, and everything will move on. Yeah, so they'll be noisy for a while, unless you had like 20%, and then it's really hard to bring it back, but you can. It takes a lot of work. Over time, it just kind of put the noise in perspective. And I'd almost tell them, like, you're only making up 0.5% of the audience. Like 99% people are happy, so move on. I don't know. You have to put it in perspective, though. You have a question?
Yeah. When you're talking about building a better community, it seems like you're just dealing with the worst of the worst, right? The trolls. What about building a community to facilitate people finding what they want to sort of find in the community? Like if you're looking to be a leader, or if you're looking to be part of a team, or if you're looking to create, or those sort of, do you consider that, or have any metrics to measure that?
Yeah, I really want to like do like the thing where like these are your top users, most contributing, your biggest winners. But I need probably some help, some people that are really creative, because what ends up happening is everyone's like, you know what, engineering resources are scarce, we'll just turn the filter on and that's it. And it's like, okay, come on guys, there's so much more we want to do together. But we never quite get to that, and quite frankly, we have a hard time getting to it as well, because there's just so much of these Russian Cyrillic characters and upside down. So, but I think we need to get there and do the positive. So maybe, I don't know, maybe you got an idea we can play with afterwards or something.
Hey, so for like the worst of the worst trolls, is there still a chance for redemption for them rather than just flat out banning them from your game? Is it worthwhile? Or would you just say, slowly take away all their powers until they feel useless and have been good for a while?
Yeah, so Riot Games had that study, and they showed that they were able to reform a whole bunch of them. So that's cool. Some people aren't aware. Like, they just thought that's, I don't know. So there's some ability, but some of them, no, you just won't be able to reform them. And you just got to count your costs. Like, it's just like, are you going to keep throwing good money after bad? It's like they've already cost you money. Should we just want to keep doing it? But that comes down to a business decision. Yeah.
I think that's it.
What's that?
I think that's. Any more questions? Yes, one here.
Please, yeah.
Hi. Are you aware that Android has issued some guidelines about potentially affecting the algorithm for search for your game if you have users that are abusing, that are not being blocked or removed or dealt with in some way in your game? And if you are aware of that, is there anything you could tell us about how that's going to be managed and how that might be changing the landscape?
Is it the same policy like Apple did?
It's new. I mean, they just issued new guidelines. I haven't even like dug into it very deeply. It was in the past couple months, but.
So no, I don't. I regret I don't know the answer to that, so I'm not just going to ignorantly give you an answer. But maybe we can talk afterwards and try to figure something out. So I would start with that free thing and then build it from there. So, and then my buddy Nick here is helping them. We're doing a new version of the same for December 15th to launch on Photon. And then you get a whole bunch more dials and screens and cool stuff. But yeah, still under their free plan. So thanks for your time, everyone.